Hey guys, welcome to the start of another restoration project. This time up, I was contacted by someone local who had an antique radio, I guess passed on to the family, and he'd like to get it working. It's an RCA 27K. Have not worked on this particular radio, but I've worked on similar radios. He had already gone ahead and printed out some enlarged copies of the writer's service info, so that will save me some time. As we can see, it's a fairly conventional design, I think from around 1941. It's transformer based, so we got a tube rectifier here, field coil, filter choke on the speaker, and then a series of metal tubes, which RCA, I believe, had invented and used in all their radios shortly thereafter. 6SK7 RF amp, 6SA7 first detector oscillator or oscillator mixer, 6SK7 IF, 6SQ7 for the second IF and detector and AVC, 6SQ7 AF amp, and 6K6 output tube. Also has push button tuning. The other diagram here is for dial stringing because the dial string on this radio is broken. So we got plenty of service info in hand, and here is the main chassis. Also have the speaker. It's not on the workbench for right now. So the owner had a little trouble getting out of the cabinet, and I can see why. The push button dial face assembly does not attach to the chassis. It's mounted to the cabinet. Plug here. It's pretty crusty, but it should come out and this should unplug. And this light, I can see that slides up here. It's only illuminated on one side with a reflector to illuminate it going that way. And here's push buttons. Which are in fine condition, unlike the Filcas you find from this era. They must have used a better plastic. Actually, I can use a Bakelite, so that's cool. Action seems pretty solid too. I'll loop it up a little, clean out the dust, debris. Should be even better. So right away when I saw this, I knew something wasn't quite right. Don't know when it happened, don't know how it happened, don't know the history of the set, but I immediately realized some of these tubes aren't quite right. For example, check out this guy. It's got a big cap on top, and it's a rather large tube, which immediately made me think TV. Yep, it's a 6CD6 horizontal output tube from the early 50s. Don't know how that made its way in here. And immediately also noticed this guy, which is a high voltage rectifier tube, also from about from the 50s, used for quite a while actually. Made in Japan, so this is actually a fairly late one. So 63-70-37, this could very well be a 1963 tube, Ward's airline. So over the years somehow that made it in here, and we can keep going. This 6AU4, I believe that's a damper tube. So it looks like somebody robbed some tubes from a TV and put them into this radio. Now this should be the rectifier tube. And instead, got this. Which may be one of the correct tube types. Yeah, I said earlier that this had all metal RCA tubes. I think I would have originally, but it clearly doesn't have any now. It's got some of these GT types though that have the metal collar around the base. Okay, here's what the number would be. I'll pull out my tricks to see if I can get that tube number legible. 6SQ7. Okay. You can kind of tell too once you get used to these tubes when you see the structure inside. 6SQ7 is multifunction, so it's going to have a more complex structure inside. And then something like this, which 6K6 GT RCA. Hey, maybe this could be the original. This is a power output tube, so you see it's got a large plate structure on it. So this is a triode dual diode. I imagine the top part is the triode and the bottom section of the box in there might be a dual diode. Or perhaps it's the other way around. Let's see, what does this call for on the schematic? Yeah, that is right. 6K6GT. So that could very well be the original. These, though, I believe will all be metal types. So what else we got? Yeah, these are common enough tubes. I can track down replacements pretty easily. 6SQ7. So do we have two 6SQ7s in here? That's curious. Not 100% certain I read this right. I think I got it right. Get out the LED flashlight. That helps a bit when we're trying to read these too. So there should only be one on this radio. 6S. No, that is most definitely 6SQ7. So we've got two. We only need one. So far we've got one correct tube for this, or two. The 6SQ7 as well. This 6DG. This kind of looks like a beam power tube of some sort. So I don't think this is right either. 6DG6. Yeah, 6DG6, clear as day. Alright, so I gotta track down some tubes. Alright, no big deal. Also has a built-in magic loop antenna, high efficiency. I think that'll disconnect, but some of these wires, two of these wires have to be identical color, so I want to take some reference photos before I do that. The dial cord is broken, so I'll have some fun restringing that. Not something I have a lot of experience with, but I do have some dial string around here somewhere, some new stuff. And I've got the diagrams, I think I can figure it out. The first thing I want to do is get this connector off here because I don't want to damage this assembly. I think a small flat blade screwdriver will help me get this out. Just stick it right through the whole connector and I can wiggle it back and forth. Yeah, there we go. Alright. This out of the way. I think you can operate the radio without this installed. I gotta see if there's a mode switching. Good, the spring is still here on the dial cord. That's good. After taking some reference photos, I disconnected the antenna and I can finally see the main chassis. First thing I'm going to do is cut off this power cord. Must have been natural rubber, and it's just completely trashed, so no point in keeping it around. I think this chassis might be copper plated. Somebody had written on here what tubes could wire. Huh, and they have written 6SQ7 on here twice. Oh, it does use two. Oh, sorry. For some reason I didn't realize that was I thought that was an SG7 or something. Okay, it does. Two SQ7s are correct. Okay. And rubber shock mounts are actually in really good shape. And looks to be all original except maybe this cap here. Electrolytic was tacked in, but the rest cool. So it looks like it'd be a pretty straightforward job. Place the paper caps. Probably most, if not all, the resistors will be out of spec. Check the mica caps. But before all that, I'll replace the power cord and try powering it up without the tubes in to make sure the transformer is okay. Here's the front. Interesting, there's a mini tuning dial put on here. I was wondering how I'd be able to operate this with a tuning dial in terms of calibrating the dial pointer, but maybe you can do it with this. There's another one back, somewhat obliterated. Serial number looks like 121575. It's got a plug for a phonograph. Or I think it says frequency modulation. You can get an FM tuner and plug the output of it into this. I think FM radio was just starting to be a thing when this was made. I removed the old power cord and tacked in a new one temporarily so I can power this up. Just going to leave a few tubes in, see if the tube filaments will light up. That'll provide a little bit of a load to the transformer. Plugged in. Because there's no rectifier tube, there won't be any high voltage going to anything, so I can see from these tubes lighting up. If I got a 6.3 volt filament supply, that's good. Pilot light should light up too, and I can put my AC meter down in those tube socket pins to see if we've got high voltage secondary. That's kind of annoying. In the schematic they don't put the tube pins on it, so I'll have to pull out a tube diagram to check on that. But first, let's see. Turned off. Alright. Got my PR57 on, and yeah, that's good. Yep, tubes are lighting up. Pilot light is lit. Cool. Alright. Let's check this out. So, high voltage secondary. Center tap is ground, so I can put one end of my meter to ground and then check the two plate pins on that rectifier tube. And I can also check the 5 volt filament winding. So let's see, we got ourselves 5Y3. So 2.8 for the filament, 4.6 for the plate. So let's see what we get. So I'm just going to put one lead right in the chassis. And I'm used to doing this from the underside of the chassis and counting around clockwise. So I think this would be 4. 383, that seems reasonable. And same on that. Okay, cool. And let's see, so 2 and 8. Yeah, close enough to 5 volts, considering this unloaded transformer. Alright, I think we are good. Power transformer. So, no reason to not proceed. Speculating earlier if this had seen any repairs or not. I think this is all original now. I'm going through the schematic a little bit more. So this is a dual 10 microfarad and 20 microfarad. So I think there's 3 caps in there. And this is the one I thought might be a replacement, but no, that is original. It's a 4 microfarad because it goes right across those tubes. It's this guy in the schematic C2. The thing that threw me is that the schematic they show the 10 on the 10, C31, C32 with the symbols here, and C30 is a 20. Normally, I'm more used to seeing like it'd be C30 on all 3 of these, and then there'd be the various symbols. So actually C30, 31, and 32 is all this. All 3 of them are in this can. It's the 3 sections of that can. Off camera, I went ahead and did a little bit of cleaning. I lubed up the bearings on this after cleaning it out a bit. And same with the controls. Lubed them up and cleaned them with the Oxit. Everything's turning nicely. Of course, I need to restring this dial at some point. And the shock mounts are in pretty darn good shape on this tuning cap, so I'm just going to leave the originals in there. So, what's next? Well, I think I'm just going to get to recapping. There's not that many. So, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think we have 8, 9 paper caps. 3-section electrolytic. And then this single axial electrolytic over here. Various resistors. Kind of curious about this guy, large dog bone. I would suspect that could be way out of value if it's not open, but the others are slightly more modern looking half-watt carbon comps, not dog bones. These lozenge looking things I think are all the mica caps. I'm more used to domino shaped ones, but I guess RCA used another type. Oh, we'll assume they're all good for now. We'll see. After looking at the schematic a little more closely, I realized there's a simple reason why I don't have numbers on the tubes. Is because they show the key and you simply count around. So starting in the upper right, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Just another way of doing it, I guess. And I seem to have the tubes numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 7 tubes total.